Well, I've spoken to both foreign ministers in an effort to convey the importance of maintaining tranquility and peace, and not to engage in a cycle that will only bring about more instability and will have a very negative effect on the peoples of the region. This constant resort to military activity of one kind or of another is not in any way helpful. We have to deal with the ongoing situation in Gaza, which is quite a humanitarian crisis of an unprecedented dimension, and we have to deal with the overall security and stability of the region. And this reciprocal targeting is in no way conducive to dealing with the long-standing issues and conflicts in the region.
Hamas has rejected the latest proposal on a hostage deal. I mean, Egypt had hosted the last talks. You've worked, very hard behind the scenes to try and effect a deal. Where does that latest rejection leave the prospects of a ceasefire, even talks on a ceasefire anytime soon?
I don't think it's positive or constructive that we try to define any party's position related to the discussions and negotiations that have been ongoing, because at various times there have been various positions taken from one or the other, and thereby we shouldn't continue to concentrate on arriving at a consensus between the two sides that will result in a ceasefire and the release of the hostages and detainees, and in the provision of humanitarian assistance. At this stage, we haven't reached that point as yet, but we are working hard in conjunction with the United States and with our Qatari partners to arrive at this point of agreement.
Can we expect further talks, another round of talks, anytime soon?
Talks are ongoing. They have never been severed. There are constant ideas being presented, and we will continue to do so until the objective is achieved. This situation cannot continue indefinitely, cannot continue even in the short term, because of the current status of the humanitarian suffering of the Palestinian civilians in Gaza, and it must be resolved as soon as possible for the sake of the civilians in Gaza, for the sake of the hostages, and for the sake of the peace in the region.
Benjamin Netanyahu insists that he will flush out the remaining Hamas operatives and senior military commanders Israel believes are in Rafah at this point. Now, while our reporting at CNN suggests that the Iran retaliatory action over the weekend has delayed any Israeli offensive on Rafah, it does seem that Israel intends to act there. How concerned are you, and when do you expect that assault on Rafah at this point?
Our position has been very clear, and I think it is consistent with the position that has been advocated by the international community, by the United States, by our partners in Western Europe. Generally, I think there's a general international community consensus that a military activity in Rafah should not occur because of the potential consequences on the civilian population, which is amassed there, almost 1.3 million civilians who are taking shelter in Rafah in very difficult circumstances. And I believe that that position should be respected by the Israeli government and should be adhered to.
Filippo Grandi, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, said a couple of days ago that the prospect of Gazans crossing into Egypt from the border town of Rafah to escape a military assault would make the resolution of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict impossible and, to quote him here, cause an atrocious dilemma for the people freeing. Say, quote, another refugee crisis from Gaza into Egypt would make the resolution of the Palestinian refugee question as a consequence of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict impossible. I just wonder what you make of his words. And would Egypt accept any Palestinians fleeing Gaza, even on a temporary basis?
I think the comments are an indication of the seriousness of the situation and the need to avoid such a circumstance. The Palestinian people are a people with a national identity. They have a homeland that is well defined, and there have been, since Oslo, a process to try to resolve this issue through negotiations and through the provision of the rights of the Palestinian people, which are generally recognized by the international community. Whatever happens, and we should avoid the potential of a military action in Rafah, in conjunction with the opinion of the vast majority of the international community, if not its unanimity, and recognize that the continuing suffering of civilians is unacceptable, and it constitutes the values that we should all uphold. Egypt has been, for the last 75 years, in all accounts, taking the best interests of the Palestinian people and giving it priority, and will continue to do so. In what manner it will do so will depend on the circumstances, and I don't think it's useful to speculate in this regard.
But if it were in the best interests of the Palestinian people, particularly those in Rafah, to open the gate, as it were, even on a temporary basis, to avoid sort of further civilian fallout from an Israeli offensive, is that an option?
Well, the best interest of the Palestinian people and the Israeli people, for that matter, is the two-state solution, and that the Palestinians can live in peace and security within their own borders, and that Israel could do the same. That is in the best interest of everyone, and we should not be promoting or speculating on any other alternative. But we will deal with whatever circumstances in the appropriate manner, in the humane manner. And I think it is important, again, to reiterate that it is incumbent upon Israel as the occupying power to provide security and to avoid the displacement. Displacement is a war crime. Displacement and any activity that is conducive and promotes displacement is a war crime and should be regarded as such. And we expect that states do not indulge in activities that are in contravention to international humanitarian law.